right, we are definitely live. Hey guys, it's Lori Branch. Welcome to Vintage House. It's the election night 2020, and I am so excited to be with two of my buddies, Alan King and Wayne Williams. Thank you for being here.
Thank you
Anything for Lori Branch. Thank you for having me.
I know we're going to have a lot of people tuning in because we're all in different places in our psychological well-being. I don't know how much sleep you got last night. I didn't get very much. Oh, Mega's here. Let me bring him into the stream. We got Kevin, aka Mega. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, happy day 2 of the U.S. election.
of election week.
What's going on, Kevin?
Hey, Wayne. Hey, Lori. Hey, Alan. Good to be with you.
Give a quick shout out to John Joy. What's up? I love my girl John shows up.
Right.
President of the Council. David Allen.
All right.
David.
Do a couple shout outs for my boy Sylvester and Serena.
Serena.
That's right. Okay, so we're going to get into it.
Reggie D. Purple.
All right, so let's get right into it. So this is election night 2020. What are your thoughts on what's happening right now, Wednesday, November 4th, 2020? Alan, I want to hear you.
I'll start. Despite what I proclaimed earlier on my Facebook page, it is not over. But I would much rather be Joe Biden than Donald Trump right now. I think Joe has more paths to get to 270 and more likely paths. And, we're probably going to get some important numbers right now as we speak from Arizona. But, I think a lot of Democrats and people who wanted to see Biden win probably went to bed last night less than thrilled. And, that was understandable. But, folks just had to be patient. And, there were certain key states that were going to come in. And frankly, I think the election is going to end up pretty much exactly like the Biden team projected it to. And they're going to win, exactly the states they thought they were going to win and maybe one or two more. So I think, from the Biden standpoint, I think it's going to be a good election week. And then we just have to withstand the nonsense lawsuits and other stuff that the Trump folks are throwing at the wall.
I kind of preferred your earlier post. It gave me hope.
Yeah.
When I want to feel good, I read Alan's posts.
No, I still, I just said I projected that Biden's going to win, and I still project that absolutely. But it's never over till it's over.
Oh, it's a nail biter. Is it a nail biter, Wayne? I mean, I don't know. Is it, people are still pretty nervous. My household is all on Twitter. Even my daughter, who I didn't think was interested at all, comes up into my bedroom and she's like, okay, at Michigan. I'm like, what are you talking about? What are you, she's paying attention. What do you think?
Well, I think it's perfect for what 2020 has been all year. And that is unpredictable. And I think that that's exactly, where we are with this election. I do lean toward what Alan just said, as far as I think Biden has the easier road at this point to get to the presidency. And, I'm not that concerned about the lawsuits or any of that nonsense that Trump is doing, because I just feel that's, that's they have people in place to take care of that nonsense. But the bottom line is we have to be patient. We have to wait. We might have to wait till the morning or the afternoon tomorrow. And fingers are crossed, toes are crossed. And, I hope for our country's sake that we have a new president.
All right. So, Kevin, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. You're following this pretty closely, too.
Absolutely. My concern has been that America has showed us who it really is in, the process of voting for someone that has demonstrated, behaviors unbecoming of a world leader. And certainly the outcome is important, which I know you're going to tackle that piece. But there's clearly continued questioning of the value of the Electoral College in this process, as antiquated and as unruly as its establishment, its mere establishment even was. So my comment, though, about the lawsuits and such, I'm wondering how much of the campaign treasure trove is allocated to fighting those lawsuits, and will additional fundraising be required?
Yeah.
I think so.
I don't think so. I think both sides were planning for this, and even if they needed to raise additional funds, that's not going to be a problem on either side. But I think both sides are well funded, and we're anticipating this. But the reality is, I mean, Trump, I'm sure he thinks that because he's pretty much installed the current Supreme Court, that all of these challenges are somehow going to get to them and they're just going to rule in his favor. And I just don't see that happening. I mean, you have to have some legitimate legal basis for challenging these things, and every state is simply following the state law. Elections are matters of state law and how they're conducted, and they're counting the votes and they're following the process entirely consistently with state law. So you can't, you got to have something to go in there other than to say we're losing, and it certainly appears that that's the only argument that they have is, we're losing and you should stop the counting on election day, even though state laws are very clear, and they have been in all prior elections, that all sorts of votes continue to be counted after election day. So I'm not worried about those lawsuits either.
Cliff Gillespie, hey Cliff, is saying, is it true 45 does not have to concede?
Yeah, I mean, there's no requirement that anyone concede, and frankly, even when media and news organizations project the winner, there's not an official winner until results get certified and the electoral college, does what they do. So, it's typical and customary that the loser concedes, but of course, we know with Trump, there's
Nothing typical
nothing
for.
typical or customary. So he probably will absolutely never concede.
Oh man,
I
it's
would
gonna be a
imagine he never will. Yeah.
going to be a long night. So we've mentioned the Electoral College a couple times. So I want to do this because I had a conversation with a friend recently, and we were talking about the Electoral College. And I feel like every 4 years we get into what is the Electoral College? Why is it important?
Yeah.
What's the advantages? What's the disadvantage? And so we had like an hour-long discussion about this. And he was saying a lot of people don't get it. What can we, like, literally in like a minute or two, break down what the Electoral College is, why do we have it, and why do we keep it? And Alan, you want to start, and Wayne, feel free to jump.
Yeah, I can start. I mean, the concept of it, and this goes way, way back to like Constitutional Convention in 1700, whatever, was to give, one of the reasons for it was to give smaller, less populated states a role in picking the president. Because if you just go by a popular vote, essentially California, New York, Illinois, and Pennsylvania, with the huge populations, are going to pick the president if you just go by a popular vote. And frankly, I think that should be the way they go. So I don't think it's a bad thing. But one of the notions of the Electoral College is that every state gets some, number of electoral votes, and the number assigned to each state depends on their number of senators and representatives in the House of Representatives. So senators are flat; everybody gets two, but the House is, varies depending on population, and it's actually one of the reasons why the census is so important, because part of that determines congressional districts and how many Congress people you get. So when people are talking about this state or that state has 11 electoral votes. That's based on the fact that they have 2 senators and so many congressmen or women. And so I think the primary idea was to give these less populated, smaller states an opportunity to have some sway in presidential elections. I would say they have an outsized role in it. When you have a state like California, yeah, there's a whole lot of electoral votes, but maybe there should be even more given the population there. So I understand it conceptually, but in this day and age, I think the popular vote. I mean, that's the way most countries do it. You win you get more votes than the other guy, or you don't.
Yeah.
And I think
Well,
that's the way it should be. But
back then, and also back then, I mean, there weren't 50 states either, So, I think that it was, Alan's right. It was a time when, they just wanted to make sure a state with a lot less less population was still in the political, they counted, or they had a vote, they had a say. And but we've outgrown that. We've outgrown it. And I think that I feel there definitely needs to be something different now. I mean, obviously times have changed from when did that electoral college, Alan, when did that first take place? Do you know?
I think like 17 something,
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
shortly
yeah.
after
Around
the
first,
founding of the country, there was a
Exactly.
constitutional convention. So
Yeah.
there's
and-
there's
yeah, and I was just
go
going to
ahead,
say
Alan.
to your point of how times have changed.
Mhm.
At the time, Black folks couldn't vote, women
Right.
couldn't even vote.
That's what I was about to say. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean it's a whole different thing now that we're sticking to this antiquated system.
Absolutely.
Do you see, people talk about slavery as it relates to the electoral college. I've read that, many of those smaller states in the beginning were slaveholding states where there were fewer people who could vote, who were counted as people, quite frankly. So it depressed their senses. And that was one of the motivators for having this system in the first place. Your thoughts?
I think that's right. I mean, I've heard that in some of those southern and smaller states or colonies or whatever they were at the time. It was sort of a trick bag. If you let it be the popular vote, then the only way that they were going to have the real power in the people in their state voting would be to count the slaves and allow them to vote. And of course, they were never going to do
Wasn't
that.
going to do that.
They weren't
No.
going to do that. So I've certainly heard that was part of the compromise. And again, it's just an example of things that we have outgrown. I mean,
Yeah.
the slavery was a factor there. Women, by and large, could not vote for a long time, even after that.
Yeah.
There's
And-
a
Go ahead, Kevin.
there's a great article from the Atlantic of it was 2019, about November 17th, 2019, that talks about the Electoral College's racist origins in that context of, it was really architected to empower those, southern states who were embedded in the industry of slavery, and the preservation of that industry was their core goal, along with political power.
Yeah. Well, let me just, and the ironic thing, frankly, is, even though we're in the Electoral College and we're in this tight race, the reality is that Black folks are determining the outcome of this election. I mean, where we are now is basically waiting on. We're waiting on Detroit. We're waiting on Atlanta. Thank you, Milwaukee. We're waiting on Philadelphia. And at the end of the day,
Phoenix. Waiting on Phoenix.
Phoenix. I mean, at the end of the day,
Right.
however you slice it, Black people are deciding the outcome of this presidency under the
Phoenix,
election. Yeah.
Waiting on
Phoenix
Las Vegas.
came in.
Did they
Phoenix
just come
came
in?
in.
Looks
Breaking
like
news.
yeah,
What is it?
Arizona, 52% of the vote for Biden, 47 for Trump.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, that was totally unexpected, and you know, another thing we had to be careful of is the Latino vote, because you have different types of Latinos, and I think that obviously Florida, the Cubans came out for Donald Trump, but in Arizona, they did not. They came out for Biden, and which makes sense because he's trying to deport them, but I think and build a wall. So it's very the landscape has changed to some degree, and I know Kevin kind of started off kind of understanding like a lot of Democrats, and my Democrat friends are a little concerned. They're not concerned. I think they're shocked. Some are upset that the race is even this close, right? And but I guess maybe because I'm an independent, I have a different viewpoint, and
let's hear it, Wayne. What? Tell us about your viewpoint as an independent. I think it's
I know a lot of Trump supporters as well, and quite frankly, I feel that they have been conned, they have been bamboozled, right? Literally, and I think that just like people are conned every day, Lori.
Who's been conned though? You say Democrats or Republicans? Who's been conned?
No, Trump supporters.
Trump supporters, got it.
They've been conned, and just like if you see something on TV or in your social media that people get conned every day, right? So I see a lot of people getting upset with them, right? I kind of have a different viewpoint. My viewpoint is that I just feel they've been bamboozled and conned, and I think that I think you have to pray for them and communicate with them and try and get them to understand. But a lot of times they're not, because they have totally been brainwashed by news channel, Fox News channel, as well as the the talking points from those people and their constituents, the Trump people. And so, there's really it's going to take a while for them to heal and understand, if they ever understand, but it's just like, I look at them like Jim Jones followers,
Really?
I really do. Anytime you consider, there are actually people considered who actually took the disinfectant or whatever Trump was talking about at some point and actually went in the hospital. And, there are actually people who went in rallies with no mask on purposely and caught the corona and died, And so anytime you're willing to do that, it's deeper than just an opinion.
Go ahead, Al.
Let me just say I agree completely, and when you combine that with what Trump is good at, he's a master at it, and that's the con. I mean, he's a salesman, and people that are susceptible to those messages, it's easy to con. For example, so the Cubans went overwhelmingly for Trump in Miami, and I can't think of a Democrat probably on the planet that is less of a socialist or a communist than Joe Biden. But Trump just flew down there a couple times and told the Cubans that Joe Biden's a socialist and a communist, and it was a wrap. So, these people are being conned and fed ridiculously false information by Fox News and by this president, that it's almost amazing to see that's all it took,
Do you think that's all it took, though? I feel like this has been slow building for many years. Craig Loftus and I had a conversation about this, like sort of when people switch from one party to the other. We went all the way back, but this has been building for a long time. This association with the power, and that the power is Republicans and the Democrats represent something else. And so as a Black person, I'm not a Republican, but many Black people who are Republicans feel like it's association with power. You know, it's not about being kind. It's that these people promote independence, hard work, power. You know, talk a little bit about that framing, and that seems to be attracting Cubans for many reasons, and many Asians, many South Asians specifically. You know, that they want to distance themselves from something that looks like it supports Black people, or that it supports poor people,
Well,
or that it supports people who are not powerful. What do you?
well, Lori, you know,
Go
you
ahead,
have to
Wayne.
take into effect a lot of these countries. A lot of these people have come from countries from dictators and socialists, where they actually ran away from got away from the socialist dictators of, you know, Venezuela, Cuba, communist China, wherever they're from, right? And so, I mean, that's a deep thing. And so, anything connecting them with the horrors of those things, that's a big deal. That's a
Sure.
big deal. And so, it's a fear tactic that Trump used and the Republicans use, because they're in it together, obviously, and the social media and Russians too, probably, you know, and they use this to scare these people and to get them to think. I mean, come on, America has never voted socialist in our entire history as a country, so you know, but these people believing that is so ridiculous to us. But you have to understand, fear is a dangerous weapon.
Yeah,
And,
it's an effective weapon.
and an effective weapon, absolutely. And then they have the same playbook. If you say it over and over and over and put it out there as many times as you can, people are going to actually believe it, you know.
I want to jump into this. You know, I was on the Facebook feed the other day, and by the way, my kid has limited me to 10 minutes a day, which is really hard. She's got a timer on my phone that says, "Time's up.
Good
Get
for
off
her.
Facebook."
Good for her.
It's helping me. I'm reading more. But I want to. Oh, David Allen said they weren't crying about socialism when they got that $1,200. That's right, David.
Right. Exactly.
But one of the things that I saw in too many places was that it doesn't matter. And I immediately thought Russian trolls in Uganda are like creating these stories to make Black people think it doesn't matter so that they don't vote. But some Black people actually believe it does not matter. That's what happened in 2016. I was really scared it was going to happen this year. Why does it matter? Why does it matter who you vote for? I'll just put it out there like that.
Yeah. Well, it's
Alan.
yeah. I mean, you hear so many crazy things all the way from, you know, a president actually doesn't have any power. They're controlled by, you know, corporations, blah blah blah, and you know, a lot of that is just absolute nonsense. But even, for example, the Bernie Sanders supporters, when you know, he kind of was defeated in the primary, there's a lot of folks there's no difference between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. It doesn't matter. There are, you know, miles and miles of difference between those two candidates. I mean, you can pretend there's not, but on just about every issue that's important to most people, whether it's the response to the coronavirus, healthcare, the environment, labor unions, minimum wage, just about every issue that you can name, Donald Trump is going to be on one side of that issue, and Joe Biden is going to be, and the Democrats are going to be on the other side of that issue. So, you know, there are challenges about whether things can get fixed, and, you know, legislation can get passed when the Congress is in the hands of the other party. But policy wise, you know, philosophies, agendas, there couldn't be a wider gulf between Republicans and Democrats. So yeah, it does matter. In January, we're either going to continue to have a president who has no concern or strategy about the COVID-19 crisis, or we're going to have a president that has a plan and really cares and is going to take control. So just about every issue you can name, you know, Biden's on one side and Trump's on the other side of the issue.
Can I to that point? And this digresses slightly. Historically, we've had other parties. I mean, ours is a two-party system, but you've had in the past libertarians and Green Party candidates that will, show up somewhere in the conversation because they too are yet on a third or fourth side of the concerns affecting the prosperity of the country. Where are the libertarians and Green Party candidates in this discussion? I mean, it's important, even though these two that we're talking about are the likely heirs.
Well, being an independent, right? I honestly think Black people should have their own party. If this election doesn't exude the strength of the Black vote, I don't know what election will, right? And so, I've never been into, a Democrat Party or the Republican Party. I think, I think they both have their faults, and I think it's going to take an independent party to really address the minorities, which are becoming the majority, right? But slowly, but especially with the Latino vote and the Asian population, and I think that everyone has an agenda. The LGBTQ, they have their agenda. The Latinos have their agenda. Who is representing us? Who is taking care of us and our agenda? And I honestly,
Ice Cube, brother, you ain't get the memo.
Ice Cube. Okay.
Yeah.
Got the black contract.
Right. So yeah. Anyway. So yeah, that's my thing. I think. Look, I'll be very controversial if I keep on talking, which I don't mind.
I'm going there. So
please, you start, and then Alan, I want you to go there because we're just getting started. Go ahead, get controversial.
No, I just think that we have a lot of power when we have a lot of our vote does count, but we're not making it count. And the only way we're going to not make it count is to get away from the Republican Party and the Democrat Party. That's how I feel. Now, I know this is the Democrat city and state or whatever, but that's how I feel. I think that we need to come together, as a minority power and tell people what we need in our communities, what's going to help our communities, how to take care of our communities,
right?
And not be aligned to a Democrat or a Republican agenda, because their agenda takes care of their people, but has never really, in my estimation, taken care of us.
There's a lot to unpack there, but before I start to unpack that big suitcase that you just laid out, because that's a whole lot.
Yeah, no, you can unpack. I wasn't necessarily going there on this question.
Okay, well,
but I will say,
there,
but I will say that we might get to a point where we have the numbers in this country to have our own party. I don't think we're there yet. I mean, I think to be successful in, statewide and national elections is usually, Blacks and Hispanics, voting 75% for one way, but we need a large segment of white folks, even if it's the minority. And, that's one of the saddest things about this election tonight. I mean, at the end of the day, it's still going to be that the majority of white people in America voted for Donald Trump. And there's a whole lot to unpack about that. I mean, in the middle of a pandemic, with hundreds of thousands of people dead, losing their jobs, losing their health insurance, the economy in the dumpster. Why is the majority of white people in this country still voting for Donald Trump?
That is a good question.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Alan.
No,
Sorry.
and part of it is the bamboozled factor that Wayne talked about earlier. But I have absolutely no hesitancy in saying that a large part of that is about race. It just simply is. I mean, you can come up with other excuses of why you're supporting this guy, but in my estimation, if you boil down everything about why people are attracted to Donald Trump, the majority, even if they won't admit it, of white folks that support Donald Trump, they support him because what he stands for is someone who is protecting and defending whiteness. That's what he's doing in America. Whether it's the brown people at the border, the black people, football players on their knees, the black people marching for social justice and equity. He is on the wrong side of all of those issues from our perspective. He is what he is doing is he is their champion, defending and promoting whiteness in a white country. And whether they want to admit it or not, that's in my estimation the major draw to Donald Trump.
Well, we've got to change that. We have to change the minds and hearts of people, because that is something that's not going to go away easily. I mean, it's been that way since the beginning of the founding of this country. Donald Trump, had dog whistles that pulled people out of the closet because they had 8 years of shock. But this is crippling. Racism, caste system, however you want to describe it, is crippling our nation. And this is just an example of it. And I think that people, Isabel Wilkerson, who just released the book Caste, I highly recommend it if people haven't heard about it. There's a podcast. Oprah Winfrey does 8 episodes on it. But it's really good because she talks about the caste, that we're in a caste system, much like India or Germany, who she compares it to. And Black people we're meant to be at the bottom of that. And so why would somebody want to give up a caste when they are the dominant culture? Why would they want to give that up? So we have to understand why people would not want to why would I want to give that up? They have to give it up because it's killing us.
Yeah.
White men are, I'll just say this and then I'll stop, get off my soapbox. But white heterosexual men are at the top of the caste system, yet they have the #1 suicide rate in the country. Opioid addictions out the wazoo, depression and all kinds of craziness that's happening. This is a symptom of white frailty, white fragility, white supremacy, however you want to call it. We're never going to, and we have to help people understand that there's a reason why your life is going so poorly, and you're doing all of this to support 1/10 of 1% of the population who controls everything because you think you might get there one day. Not going to happen. I'll stop.
Yeah.
Wayne?
Well,
yeah. Go
ahead, Kevin. Well, I just want to say this, right?
Okay, please.
I don't think it's just all that, Alan. Race, right? It's a lot of race, right? But I don't think it's all race.
Yeah, I'm not saying all, but go ahead.
Yeah, I think a lot of it, parts of it is fear, right? And parts of it is, and what I mean by fear, they think because of this Trump rhetoric, they think things will be taken away from them, right? And that's part of their fear. The other part is the evangelicals, right? Who the pro-life, right? Sure. So you have those people who are for that, and they think the Democrats are against that. Sure. And they think, and they think Democrats are, all Democrats aren't against that, but especially in the Bible Belt, So, but they think, they're attacking that as well, their Christianity, sure, as well as. So it's a combination of fear, and race. And race has always been fair. But I will say this, because I watch all the stations, right? And I watch Fox News as well as CNN and MSNBC. And so, right?
I don't know how he does it, but he does.
Yeah.
My stomach starts hurting when you just mention that. Oh my God.
And so, in watching them, right, they were saying some of the votes that came for Biden and some of the votes that came for Trump. And the suburban white women came out for Biden, you know, big time, right? But the uneducated vote came out for Trump heavy. Like
why is that? Why are uneducated people supporting Donald Trump?
But you know, it was so funny because when they were going over the things and the newscasters were on Fox, right? And it just made it seem so bad. I mean, they had to feel something because they're like, they had like a 90% uneducated vote came out for Trump. You know,
oh my gosh.
And you imagine how they would, you know,
right.
you know, most of them are Trump supporters, right? And it's like, you know, but they're saying the college educated came out for Biden, you know. And so, you know, it was just interesting as they went through the dynamics of who voted. You know, the rurals came out for Trump, and the uneducated come out for Trump heavy. You know, and so I just thought, wow, you know, do you hear what you guys are saying? You know what I'm saying?
That's why the bamboozle works.
Yeah.
That's why the bamboozle works. Because if you keep people
absolutely
the same reason why they didn't want to educate black people.
Absolutely.
Educated people have power.
And newsflash, that same bamboozlement worked on black men.
Yeah,
okay, so there was a bunch
of
folks
yes,
who
it
asked
did
that.
too much. Go ahead, Kevin.
There are polls, right, that are segmenting, you know, the voters around their demographics that absolutely allude to what you were just mentioning. However, there's got to be significant questioning of polls at this point, particularly 2 elections in a row where they were vastly off their projections. And I got to believe, I mean, we could survey this group right here. Were any of you called by pollsters?
I wasn't.
No.
Right. I don't know anyone.
I've never been called by a pollster in my entire life.
That has been. And so where are they really, who are they really reaching and measuring, you know, sentiment towards these votes? So that's one point I wanted to make, but I wanted to also go back.
I can attest to that on social media.
How so?
Okay, because how so?
Yes.
I mean, just interactions with people on social media, black men who were voting, who were anti-Biden and voting for Donald Trump. You know.
Okay.
Well, I saw some of that.
And so I'm like, at the end of the day, I'm like, do you realize you're standing in the line, black men? You're standing in the line with Nazis and the Ku Klux Klan. Some got to be wrong with that.
Is it possible that they are white, that they believe in white supremacy? Is it possible that black people who vote for Trump believe in white supremacy? Is that a possibility?
I don't think that's what it is, but there was a massive disinformation campaign on social media about Biden and the crime bill and all this other crap, right?
Right.
And they bought into it.
Okay.
They bought into it.
But I want to go back to the point about the economics of what this root cause analysis of why we believe, you know, people are voting for this guy who, you know, it is my opinion and only my opinion that he is a vile person. And the economic impact to this country, according to a woman who is a world-renowned economist from Citigroup, her name is Dana Peterson. And Dana Peterson wrote a 104-page report along with, you know, some of her colleagues from Citibank that found that the cost of racism and racial bias in this country is costing this country $16 trillion since the last, since the beginning of the.
Why does that happen, Kevin? What does that mean?
It means that the opportunity cost as well as real costs of not allowing for racial equity in employment and business opportunities and other, transactions and trade would ultimately impact this country's gross domestic product from earning an additional $16 trillion on top
That's
of
my
what
point. But you've proven my point, which is that it's crippling us. It's crippling
That's
us.
exactly right.
I think about it like this. I think that racism, casteism, whatever you want to call it, white supremacy, is like for white people who believe that they are superior, it's like eating a Twinkies for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It feels good, but your teeth are going to fall out and your insides are going to rot. And you will suffer because you've done that. And if we got, that's what I'm saying. We got to get into the hearts and minds of people to understand that this is not about you helping Black people. It's about helping yourself.
Right.
It's about helping your family. It's about helping this society.
Yeah.
Preach, Lori.
Yeah. But most people don't see beyond their immediate feelings and their immediate circumstances. And the question is, how do we change it? And it's hard. I mean, with each generation, it gets a little better, and there's more, forward thinking. But when you had a Black president who was probably about the most non-threatening Black man you could possibly find on the planet, and a model non-threatening Black family in the White House, which could have been an opportunity to embrace that, and for white folks to realize that the sky is not going to fall because there's this Black family in the White House. And by and large they didn't, or a large segment of the country decided to vilify them and make up stories and so, and I say that only in the context of how do we change it and how do we make progress. And that was such an opportunity to make progress, and in some respects we did, or he wouldn't have been elected and reelected. But the folks on the other side of that equation, rather than like taking the opportunity to say, what, this is, the world is not going to end and the sky is not going to fall. And they could not do that. They vilified this man. They made up everything you can imagine under the sun. And if y'all can't tolerate Barack Obama, it's tough to tolerate any Black man.
Well, we always got to have a Jackie Robinson first, for the palatability contest. I want to
let me just say real quick. This does not surprise me. This is nothing new, right?
Yes.
Harold Washington, when he ran for office, he won the Democratic nomination, and the white folks in Chicago, literally, who've been voting Democrat their whole entire lives, changed to Republican.
Yep.
And almost beat Harold Washington to be mayor of Chicago. So, does this really surprise
you? In fact, there was a famous racist commercial then, because he ended up running, if I'm not mistaken, he ran against Bernard Epton.
Bernard
Epton. And the TV ad was simply, the tagline was, "Vote Epton before it's too late."
I remember that.
That was the ad. That was the ad before it's too late.
This is the funny thing, right? Black folks have been voting for white people most of our lives.
Right.
I can't tell you how many times we voted for that racist Daley. I can't tell you how many times we voted for him, right? I mean, and governors, and I mean, come on, we just haven't had that many Black people run for office, right? So we mainly vote for white people. We don't think twice about it.
Right.
Soon as that Black man ran, the white folks went straight Republican.
Well, so let me ask you this: Is it our responsibility? This is a loaded question. We have I'm gonna back up a little bit. This is not new to our country. You've seen Ta-Nehisi's book, We Were 8 Years in Power, and you think that he's talking about Obama, and he's actually talking about when we had a part of Reconstruction after the Civil War, where we had, Black people elected to offices and all these great things were happening. And what followed immediately after that was, you got it, Black codes, Jim Crow, all that stuff. Because people saw, they weren't afraid of Black government, they were afraid of good Black government. That is a terrifying thing for weak-minded people, to have good Black, and the parallel is obvious when he was talking about, Reconstruction. It's the parallel with Obama. People are terrified of good Black government, all these great things happening. What does that mean for me, who thought that I was in this superior place all this time, when somebody can come in and make that kind of magic happen?
Well, until we start independent thinking,
yes, I agree,
and not voting a party or a ticket, right?
Okay.
And you vote the person, not the party. Until you have independent thinking,
Okay.
you will be subjected to.
Do you have to be? Can you be a Democrat and not be
Democrat.
subjected to that, Alan? Subjected to the okie doke?
Well, I bet. What do you mean exactly on that?
So Wayne's point is, we're going to move once we start being more independent. That we're not sort of towing the line for Democrats or Republicans. We think for ourselves. We do our own research. And I agree with that.
Yeah.
Talk about being a Democrat.
I mean, everybody should be an informed voter. I mean, there's no question about that. And I think that the healthiest democracies would probably have more than just two parties. But we also have to be realistic about where we are now, which is a two-party system in this country. And I don't think it happened so much in this election, but probably a lot in the 2016 election. That people have to understand. If you're voting for a Green Party candidate, you may feel good about that, and but you're effectively voting for Donald Trump if the alternative is a Democrat. So I totally believe in being smart, informed voters, and it would be great if we had more than two competitive parties. But we also have to be realistic at the same time and not throw our votes away.
Right. And what I was going to ask was, which comes first, right? The ability to think independently, and not be sort of wooed by some false promises of these mega parties, if you will, excuse the pun, or do we have to have the right leader emerge that is thinking along the lines of breaking out of the boxes that the politicos operate in?
Yeah, I think that right leader has to emerge, and arguably that was Bernie Sanders. I mean, maybe he has a big enough movement to step in a certain direction and be something other than a Democrat. Now, I don't think he can win, and I think the last two elections have proven that he's not going to win. And I know Wayne shaking his head because he's a socialist, will never win in America. He's going to say that
because we don't know what socialism is.
Right, but there is at least a large following with some traction for Bernie Sanders, unlike these other Green Party and all this other nonsense that we hear about. Well, one of my problems with Bernie Sanders was, always, being who he is and having his Bernie bros, but at the same time wanting to take advantage of the Democratic Party and our processes and he won't even call himself a Democrat, but he wants full support, equal treatment from the Democratic Party. So I only say that I don't think that party could be successful, but that's the closest thing that I can think of in modern politics. If he was to step in one direction and call himself the Bernie Party, it has some traction. He's got quite a number of followers, but that's the closest thing that could come to a viable third party at this point.
I mean, if people truly understood socialism, that's what,
Right.
maybe he calls himself a democratic socialist. And listen, if you want to understand how much of our life is already socialized,
Right.
look up Eugene Debs, Eugene Debs. Just Google him, read about him, because he was a socialist. And when he was running, people thought he was crazy. And guess what? A bunch of stuff that he did is we're experiencing right now. So we already got half socialist stuff happening now.
Absolutely.
So I'm not opposed to it. I'm not opposed to socialism. I'm not opposed to any form of government that's going to raise people up. But I agree with you, Wayne. We have to be smart. We've got to read. We've got to research, and we've got to think for ourselves. Now, that's not. Now, I want to pivot a little bit because Black people overwhelmingly support Democrats, right?
Today.
But this less so. I saw a lot of comments earlier on the thread that more Black people voted for Trump, both women and men. 8% of Black women. I think it was double the amount of Black men. So a lot of Black people voted for Trump. What are your thoughts on Black people moving away from the Democratic Party but going to Trump? Not independence, but sort of making that leap. Wayne?
So here I go. Can you curse on this show?
We are not FCC bound.
We're not out there. We're not in the studio, so you probably could.
Yeah. Well,
not too much.
Right. Let me.
It's the Vintage House Show.
Let me say this, man. Right. Yes. Let me say this. If you are in line with the Ku Klux Klan and the neo-Nazis, you might want to think again about the line that you in. I mean, if they know who the racist is, and you saying the other guy's the racist, there's a problem. Because they've been doing racism long before you even got here. Okay? So, I mean, it's really, honestly, it's stupid to me. It's dumb as hell, right? And it's stupid, right? And so it's frustrating to me, right? That Black men and some of our sisters would actually think that Trump is the better alternative. This guy wants to take away your health care. I mean, he's in court right now suing over it and has zero plan for a new health care, right? I mean, I could just go over so many things that because he'll let a couple of Black people out of jail, Black folks will get behind him. I'm like, y'all that ridiculous, man. Right. You know, I mean, come on, man. But at the same time, tell his attorney generals to make sure everybody's locked up for any crime that they do. Literally send that out, and say he's the law and order guy. But they feel like, oh, he's gonna be good to Black folks. Donald Trump, man, are you kidding me? You know, I mean, it's so ridiculous, you know. Yeah. And I wish we had. Go ahead. I was talking about the crime bill with Biden, and they want to hammer him like he was the only guy who wrote the bill, right? Like it's so bad. I actually think black people think Biden went state to state putting Black guys in jail, showing up in different courtrooms saying he deserves way more time.
Right. It was all Joe Biden.
It was all Joe Biden. I mean, come on, man. I don't understand. I really don't understand. Reading is essential.
It's fundamental.
We have to really learn how to read. First of all, the crime bill was for violent crimes. It wasn't for small drug offenses. That's number one. You know, so, and they get that, oh, well, he put so many cats in jail for drug offenses. No, he didn't. The states did that with the judges in those states. Had nothing to do with what Joe Biden was proposing. You know, then they say he was the three strike. Joe was for the 3 strike. No, he wasn't. He even said in the bill when he was doing it, he didn't like that 3 strike law. But people have bought into this disinformation campaign that Trump and our oppressors are feeding our black brothers and sisters this stupid information, and they're going with it, and it's just absolutely frustrating to me.
So that's not going to stop. Go ahead, Alan.
No, I was just going to say, I think it's a combination of things. It is what Wayne just said, you know, people not being informed, and you know, the bamboozlement applies to our people as well. You know, Donald Trump just stands up and says, I've done more for black people than any president since maybe, just maybe, Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah.
And there's a segment of our people that believe that, and they don't understand how government works, and you know, Trump can point to one or two things, and then at the same time, there's an unprecedented racial justice and equity movement going on in this country, supported by people of all colors, which we've seen over the last few months. And is the president on the right side of that issue, or is he on the wrong side?
Right.
Is the president telling, you know, government contractors and the like, you can't even have diversity training or training on unconscious bias, or you can't show the, you know, the was it 1619 project in your school? I mean, the racial things that this man has done and endorsed are you know, harken back to Ku Klux Klan days.
Mm-hmm.
But there are enough people that, you know, if he says I've done more for black people than anyone since Abraham Lincoln, some
makes me
segment's going to be bamboozled, and they're going to believe that.
I mean, but that makes me wonder, do they support white supremacy? Is internalized racism that deep that I want somebody who's going to put me in my place?
I was just, to finish my answer, I was going to say that's part of it too. But I do think there also is some segment of black folks that have been disappointed in the Democratic Party and Democratic elected leaders, and they feel like they've taken our votes for granted, and they've not delivered in kind for our support. So I understand that concept, and why you might want to not always vote Democratic. But for this guy,
right?
You know, for this guy, no, this isn't the time.
Not the one.
This isn't the time. He's not the one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm sorry, I just want to say that I'm one of those people who thinks, you say the Democrats have taken black people's votes. I'm one of those people, but not with this guy. Are you kidding? Not with Donald Trump. Are y'all nuts? Right? It's like, come on, man. Come on. We got to do better than that now. And I do believe the Democrats have taken our vote, and they had, you know, we you know, for granted. I truly believe that. But I do see, especially with the women and the black women in Chicago getting elected, I definitely see a resurgence, right? And there's power in that resurgence, you know. And another thing, Lori, I know you brought up that it went from 4% to 8% for black women. But let's not take away, because I'm very proud of black women in this election. Black women showed up and showed out in this election. And thank God, because some of our black men, oh my God, they so disappointed me, you know. But black women showed up and showed out. And I'm very proud of my sisters, especially in this election. So I just want to throw that out there.
I appreciate you saying that. We were talking earlier about the cities that are still being counted as we speak in this conversation. And there's cities where you have a lot of black people. A lot of black people are going to decide this election. So black people, your vote counts. It matters.
I wanted to also add, you know, we have, let's not forget, a black woman vice presidential candidate who is, I would say, they've kept her a bit back from the forefront of this campaign. I'm with you, Wayne. I am too very proud of the political prowess and the effective messaging that our black women leaders have had in this 2020 election cycle. I feel that there were some questions, right, that emerged when Kamala Harris was selected as the vice presidential candidate that were similar to, what was outlined around what was fact versus what was, the prescribed narrative about the impact. And one of the things that we all spend a lot of time, although Lori, you're weaning yourself off of social media, but the point that was made earlier about the disinformation that gets perpetuated, social media has a lot to do with that. Absolutely. People have become very accustomed to digesting small chunks of information. And so it's very easy to consume disinformation because it's encapsulated in a very small chunk. And rather than
and just keep scrolling, it's an addiction, people.
Understanding journalistic integrity, which is that journalism is integrity of information dissemination. Social media is the flailing of information. And so we're also in this election cycle and in the previous one and others, somewhat victims, right, of what social media does in terms of minimizing our thinking and our ability to get deep and clear and robust insights. So I just wanted to make that point about what we're up against here.
I'm not opposed to social media. Look, I love it just like everyone else. I think that what I'm opposed to is the absence of critical thinking. Is that we're kind of losing our ability to do that. And that might have been a little bit easier when we didn't have all this information coming at us so fast. Because it is easy to just flip and, whatever, you don't check sources, what have you. So let's talk about what's next. So what now? Let's pray we're going to get a Biden presidency. Okay, someone's saying he might be a one-term president. Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves, Othia. But we get a Biden presidency. What now? What can house heads do? What advice would you give?
Well, it's disappointing that it looks like Democrats are not going to get control of the Senate. So, no matter who the president is, there are limitations on what you can do when you have trouble passing legislation. I'd like to believe, even though Barack should not have been a polarizing figure, but half of the country saw him as a polarizing figure, and at least half of the country sees Trump as a polarizing figure. I'd like to believe there's some opportunity for an old white guy like Joe Biden, not to have Republicans as rabid about doing nothing as they were before. But that might be wishful thinking. But what can house heads do? What we can all do is just continue to put pressure on our leaders and our new president and our new vice president. And you got our votes, and we carried you over the finish line. And you got to pay attention to our issues and our demands, and you figure out ways to present those and how. But we've got to hold them accountable, even if they win and they're in there, and we can celebrate for one day, and then we go about the business of holding them accountable to do better.
That's right.
And quite frankly, I don't care if it's Ice Cube or Lil Wayne or whoever come up with the damn plan. I just think we have to present it, and it's something that obviously we should look at. It should be thorough. I mean, we have enough people who can walk us through this process, and leaders that can get to a Biden and a Harris, where they no way they was getting to know Trump and Pence, so that's the plus, and that's the positive thing, our voices will be heard, but we have to we have to understand our power. You have to understand your leverage, and in any negotiation, leverage is the key and so important. And if we haven't shown our leverage in this election,
Right.
we will. I mean,
Right.
I mean, it is what it is, you know. And so we have to take that, and we have to come together as a community and as a voting bloc and say, look, we want this, we want this, we want this, we want this, we want this. Now we're not gonna get everything, but we got to get some of that stuff, you know.
And yeah, let me just say on that point and our leverage. I mean, don't forget that Joe Biden was almost toast in the Democratic primary. I mean, he was going down with the ship, and black people, period, black people in South Carolina saved his butt and turn that election around. And indeed, as Wayne is saying, you know, our sisters turned out in this general election in large part because Joe was smart enough, Joe Biden, the racist, who picked for the first time a black woman to be his vice presidential candidate, who also, by the way, decided that he would serve for 8 years, the nation's first black president, as some racist wouldn't do. But so if Joe don't understand that black people got him into the White House, you know, he has to understand that. So there is leverage, and we have to take advantage of that.
I want to go back to that point of leverage. Though very often, well, I don't ever see anything else in terms of messaging the movement of get out the vote, right? The vote is a portion, it's a fraction of what we as citizens, what we as people who are concerned with our well-being and prosperity have to do. We have to be engaged. We have to speak out to those that get into elected offices. There was one comment I saw pass by, you know, keep your congressmen and senators' phone numbers on speed dial. Right. Even beyond that, right now they've made it so easy. You can go to a congressman or senator's website, and there's a pre-filled template. All you have to do is put your name and number and email address in, and there's a pre-filled template that can convey, you know, what you want the stance on a particular issue to be. It has become so simple now to go beyond the vote, to make sure that the elected official is acting on your behalf. You're their constituency. They answer to you. And so I'm a big proponent of making sure we message, not just vote, but engage with your elected officials until you get, you know, either rejected or some satisfactory answer. Wayne, you said it, we're not going to get everything, but the more pressure you apply, or that leverage, as you described, the more you're going to get. That's right.
That's right, Celeste. That's right, Kevin. So I have another question that's completely unrelated, and it comes from Serena, who says, Wayne, you're in the bed. Alan, you're at your office. Where's the music?
Well,
we were about to play some music.
Yeah, I think they didn't read the flyer closely. That this is not a music night.
It's not a music night, but I know there's music coming.
Oh yeah, so, Friday and Saturday. Wayne on
Friday and Saturday. Yeah. Friday you can see Alan on.
No, Wayne on Friday.
Wayne on Friday.
Fabulous first Friday. First Friday of the month. 6 to 9.
Okay, and what platforms are you using? Twitch,
yeah.
Okay, so are you liking
and Mixcloud? Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, it's cool.
Switch to Twitch. I'm liking Mixcloud too. I got to get back on. So listen, I'm gonna let you guys go, but I wanna end it by underscoring something that you said, Wayne, which is that we have to understand our power, and that this election was really demonstrative, and really letting people know you have the power. And don't fall for the okie doke. I know Black people are liking Trump, more and more. He did not, and Mary Datcher pointed this out, he did not appoint one Black federal judge the last 4 years.
0.
So if you knew that and you still voted for this guy, you got some homework to do, because that is not in your best interest. So I will say again, understand our power. Alan, is there something you want to leave us with? And then Wayne?
The only thing I will say in closing is, and particularly last night, I think a lot of people were discouraged because we wanted to see a bigger repudiation of Donald Trump.
Mhm.
But the reality is it's a pretty big one. I mean, if the way that it's looking, I mean, Joe Biden got more votes for president than any person who's ever run for president in the history of this country. Um, he's gonna win the popular vote by way more than Hillary Clinton won the popular vote, probably over 4 million popular vote. His electoral college victory is probably going to be bigger than Trump's was in 2016. At the end of the day, all I'm saying is that it is a big rejection and repudiation of Trump and Trump's America. So don't lose sight or feel bad like we didn't accomplish anything really or just squeaked over the finish line, because I think America sent a very strong message and we just have to build on that.
Thanks.
Yeah, I have to agree with that too. I think that again, the suburban women who went for Trump in 2016 went against him in 2020. Educated people was in Biden's favor. Hispanics, most Hispanics around the country were for Biden, except for those few in Florida. And Black folks took care of business in Detroit like they didn't in 2016. They
Right.
came out in Detroit and they took care of business, and that's how he won Michigan.
Mhm.
And we're gonna see what's going to happen in Philadelphia, and in Phoenix there's a big, obviously Black vote, and
Mhm.
Atlanta there's going to be a big Black vote as well. So we've come out in a lot of these major cities around the country and have showed up and showed out, and we should be very proud of this election. And not only that, young people came out in this election as well, and they came out and showed out too. So I think that what the surprise is, I think for some people, is that a lot of Trump's people came out, because he had more people came out in this election than the last election.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
but they weren't expecting all those people that came out on our side as well. I mean, it was historical voting, and I think we should be very proud of what's going on and what's happening, and we're gonna keep our fingers crossed.
The democracy was certainly empowered and enlivened by this campaign,
Absolutely.
and that is a beautiful thing.
Silver lining.
Georgia is saying that they've got some 29,000 mail-in ballots that they will count tonight. So more to come on Georgia.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Yeah.
wonderful. So listen, thank you both. You are two of the smartest house heads I know. So
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
so you're beautiful. You're wonderful. I appreciate and love you both. And I hope we come back and be able to talk some music and see each other real soon. Anything you want to report or promote before we get off the air?
Well, I do my Saturday Night Live show on Twitch every Saturday night, 8 p.m. Until the wee hours sometimes.
Great.
So folks can catch me every Saturday night on Twitch.
Awesome.
That's
And you don't have to be a Democrat or Republican. Anybody can watch.
Anybody.
We call Alan the Marathon Man.
Oh, you can go, man.
Right.
One of my favorite things.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
for me, I'm just once a month. Once a month Friday. I call it Fabulous First Friday, and it's from 6 to 9, and playing mostly new house music. And you know, whatever the hell else I feel like at the time. But mostly new house music is what I play.
Well, we'll be tuning in. All right, so next week we'll be back.
Thank you, guys.
We're going to have a female, speaking of women, Rhonda Flowers is joining us next week. So, you know, one of the biggest names in house music in Chicago for women, well, of women. She throws parties for everybody, but she'll be in the house. So we'll probably, hopefully we will have the election decided by then. If not, we might be talking politics next week too. All right, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you on the flip. Take care, everybody.
All right. Thanks, Lori.
Peace.
All right.
Thanks, Kevin. Bye-bye.
All right, Wayne, Alan, Lori,
buddy.
be well.
You too.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.